But I want to show you just one more thing first, just a reminder of the state of the journalism industry in Canada today. And by industry, I mean the jobs. If you're going to journalism school, presumably it's because you want a journalism job. Not sure why you'd want that. Well, look at this. Just in the past few months, closing of Huffington Post Canada, abrupt and devastating, editor says. Midday announcement and decision to immediately stop publishing caught staff off guard. Yeah, I bet it did. I don't know if you saw that, but the entire Huffington Post organization in Canada, which had been around for years, had published tens of thousands of stories. It was just deleted by their own owners. The site literally was erased. Everyone was fired in Canada, and the staff, it's not funny, it's sad. They learned about it by going on the internet and seeing literally nothing where their website once stood. Their own owners did that to them. That's amazing to me. And this is just from a few weeks before that. Bell Media lays off 210 employees in Toronto area, half from newsrooms, says union. The union representing some Bell Media workers says a total of 210 employees in the Toronto area are being laid off, with most of the notifications taking place today. So that's just from the last month, those two stories. Here's more. There's a story about the Vancouver Sun and Vancouver Province newspapers with layoffs, and here's more. This is a headline that George Orwell would love. I'm serious, take a look at this. I don't even understand this headline. Niagara newspaper offices to be shuttered as commitment to local journalism continues. What? You know, that would be like saying, after World War II, the Axis powers came in second place while the Allies came in next to last. That's just quite a headline about a newspaper shutting down to serve you better. My point is, journalism as an industry is in a terrible crisis in Canada. Although there's never been more demand for news, there's never been a bigger supply of news, there's never been more ways to get news, something's not a fit. And let me now take you for a walk through Ryerson's journalism school, which is truly like taking a walk through an insane asylum 100 years ago before those things were shut down. It's sheer madness. I think my insane asylum analogy is strong. It feels like they're cooking up mental illness in these places. This is from the Ryersonian, which is the official in-house news publication of the journalism school there. So this is where they practice being who they want to be. This is where they show what they think leading journalism is. This is the best of the next crop of journalists. Ryerson School of Journalism's new leaders say there's a lot of work to be done. All right, I agree, but it's not what you think. Ryerson School of Journalism's newly appointed interim co-chairs, Asma Malik and Gavin Adamson, have released a list of 5 measurements to guide the school's renewed commitment to meeting students' needs. Okay, getting a little nervous. I think student needs at a journalism school are, they need to be taught. Maybe I'm wrong. Here's what they have to say. In an email sent to the program's faculty and students last Wednesday, Malik and Adamson outlined 5 measures intended to rebuild trust among students. With the support of Ryerson School of Journalism's newly appointed transformation lead, Professor Kamal Al-Soleili, the school will focus on the fundamental role of equity and inclusion in the future of journalism education. I see the transformation plan as a lot more than just a curriculum change, but where students don't have to advocate for their humanity or their worth to the administration, says Al-Soleili. That seems a little bit odd to me. I haven't got into the learning journalism part yet. Let's go a little deeper. These 5 measures have been introduced in response to outcry from students and alumni expressing concerns with the school's leadership. In particular, they say the school has not provided effective support for Black, Indigenous, people of color, and the LGBTQ2IA plus community. I'm XXL, if you're wondering. Following the resignation of former Chair Janice Neal and Associate Chair Lisa Taylor, a call to action was made through an open letter by Ryerson journalism students addressing concerns that the school has contributed to an unsafe learning environment. Unsafe, they don't mean like an open manhole cover or asbestos or no fire alarms. They mean unsafe words and feelings. The School of Journalism is not yet a safe place for paper-thin-skinned political pouters who think and talk of nothing else other than their grievances and their race and their gender and their sexuality and just being quarrelsome orcs. Who cares about your skin color and their sexuality? Do you want to learn how to do journalism or not? The first priority on the list of commitments provided by Malik and Adamson is a permanent student equity task force. According to them, this task force will consist of 4 elected members from both undergraduate and graduate students. Members will be collaborating with students and faculty on initiatives to address critical equity concerns inside and outside the classroom. Just to be clear, this isn't about how they learn. This is about how they quarrel. It's like an internal human rights commission, a perpetual internal struggle session, a permanent war of all against all. LGBTQ2IA 7B 63 minus versus Aboriginal folks versus black folks, whatever. I'm not sure if they even allow straight white men in at all anymore. I'd have to check. But then they quote one of the new bosses of the school, that Kamal al-Sulayli guy. He says the administration needs to focus on conversations that are being had between faculty and students. Journalism schools need to do a better job of making sure students are understanding the way free speech is not applied equally, al-Sulayli says, and the ways in which some students' words are seen as acceptable while others are not, based on their race or sexual orientation. What? Now, this isn't even good journalism that I'm reading you, is it? They don't actually quote the man. They don't explain what that means. Did al-Sulayli actually say that about free speech? Did they just interpret that way? I don't know. Good journalism would probably put his words in quotes, what he actually said, and explain it. Now, I'm not going to go through it all. It's just so fuzzy and weird, and none of it, as you may have noticed, has anything to do with the world and reporting and getting a job. It's all just a big psychotherapy session for people who live in one of the freest, best countries in the world, Canada. And many of these folks, frankly, just came here, but they prefer to demonize the country that's just given them freedom and prosperity. Pretty gross, if you ask me. But let me read to you those 5 things the School of Journalism is going to focus on now. Just to tell you, spelling, grammar, that's not what we're talking about. Let me quickly go through the 5 of them. Number 1, supporting establishment of a permanent student equity task force. I mentioned that already. Number 2, re-examining and redesigning our curriculum to incorporate critical content that draws from experiences of historically marginalized communities, including but not limited to queer, Indigenous, and Black communities, as well as faith communities who may be historically marginalized. What's that got to do with, can you cover City Hall? Can you scrutinize government documents? You're navel gazing. Point 4, providing journalism-focused equity training to faculty, staff, and instructors. So the teachers have to learn more? Are the kids learning anything here? And point 5, offering more frequently existing Ryerson School of Journalism courses that take critical approaches to these issues, reporting on race, reporting on Indigenous issues, reporting on religion and queer media. Additions, alternatives to these courses will also be explored. I'm exhausted just reading this, and I didn't even read all 5 of them. These students are not learning journalism. They're not learning how to research, how to write, how to think critically, how to physically go and get the news and report it, how to challenge political authority, challenge corporate authority, how to use modern tools like social media, how to make a living in a changing industry, how to survive when hundreds of working journalists are being laid off. They're being taught how to grouse and gripe and bitch and complain and moan and think of themselves not based on talent or merit or character, but based on race and sex and sexuality and other irrelevant criteria that have nothing to do with reporting the news. And they're a laugh and they're a joke and it's pitiful and most of them won't find work. But they'll have debts and they'll be taught that that was someone else's fault. That's an excerpt from my daily show, the Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.